Hola amigos, ¿qué tal? Stuart here from Spain Speaks, coming to you today from one of Spain's most prominent wine producing areas, the Ribera del Duero area here in Spain. I'm in the province of Valladolid, and this behind me is the Douro River, or the Douro River, I think we call it in English. And my intention is to follow this river all the way to the province of Zamora, but I'm starting here today in the small town of Balbuena de Duero. As I said, this is one of the biggest wine producing areas here in Spain. This one with La Rioja, I suppose, are the two biggest wine producing areas here in Spain. Of course, there are others, but those are the two most prominent ones in my opinion. And while I'm here, of course, I'm going to sample some of the local drops and see if I can pick myself up a bargain or two. And from what I've seen so far, this is a fantastic place to get away from it all, especially big city life. Great food, great wine, as I said before, and with hiking trails like this one along the Douro River, you can do a bit of exercise while you're here. Now, when it comes to wine, a lot of the big Spanish wineries are in this area. A lot of the common supermarket wines you can see here, for example, Protos. Protos is a very famous wine in Spain, and it's not far from here. Some of the country's more expensive wines are also found in this area, for example, Vega Sicilia, and one of my favorite wines here in Spain, Arzuaga, is also in this area. We'll check out some of the wineries tomorrow. I'm not going to do a wine tour because I'm here with my son, but we'll go to a couple of wineries and check out what they're like, at least from the outside. Now, not a big town, this one. Not sure how many people live here, but I imagine that most people work either directly or indirectly in the wine industry. And like a lot of small towns in this part of Spain, a big elderly population. Okay, so it's time to start day 2 of my Douro adventure. My night in this fantastic place has come to an end. A beautiful night last night. It was a cool night. We had a nice dinner, some fantastic wine, very, very good wine in this part of the world. You don't need to buy a bottle. If you just buy a glass of wine, the quality is very, very good. Now, the next step is going to be a place called Tordesillas. Then we're going to go to a place called Toro, which is also a wine area. But today we're going to visit a couple of wineries around the area and check out what they are like. As I said yesterday, I'm not going to try any wines. I'm not going to do a wine tour because I'm here with my son, but I'm just going to check out what these places look like. So let's go. And this is an example of one of those wineries or bodegas that I was talking about before, Mato Romera, and this is a very widely recognized wine here in Spain from this area. So another view of the magnificent Douro River behind me. It's amazing to think just how important this river is for all of the agriculture in this area and how many jobs it creates here in the province of Valladolid. And also not to mention the fact that it is a very important tourist magnet also for this region. And here's a place that's taking advantage of eno-tourism here in Spain, or wine tourism, Bodegas Arzuaga. And judging by the size of the place behind me, it must be a very, very successful business. It's amazing to see just how many wineries there are in this area. As you drive along, you'll see all of the famous brands one after the other. And as I said earlier, eno-tourism is huge in this part of Spain and it's becoming increasingly popular. There's an abundance of hotels and rural accommodation available, and most are quite reasonably priced. And as we just saw, a lot of the major wineries, or bodegas in Spanish, also offer accommodation and dining experiences. Food is another pro about this area, and you'll find a variety of tasty Castilian dishes to combine with local wines. And dining out is not that expensive if you know where to go. And I'm going to be honest when I say that Ribera wines are one of my favourite wines in Spain. Okay, they may not be the cheapest, but hard to go wrong with the wines from this area. Now it's time to leave the Ribera del Duero wine region and head to the provincial capital of Valladolid, and then on to the historical town of Tordesillas, also on the Douro River. Tordesillas is famous for the treaty that was signed in 1494 by the Catholic monarchs of the time, Queen Isabella I of Castile and Ferdinand II of Aragon, which established the line that divided the world between Spain and Portugal for colonization purposes. It's a bustling little town with plenty of historical sites to see, and it's a popular place for Spanish people travelling north and south to stop, refuel and refresh. In fact, our lunch here was one of the better ones on this trip. However, Tordesillas makes news a lot nowadays for another reason, and it's the controversial Toro de la Vega celebration, which was banned in 2016 by the regional government because of violent clashes between those in favour of the festival and those against it. But whatever your opinion on festivals here in Spain that involve bulls, Tordesillas is, in my opinion, worth a visit. And as we can see, the river a lot wider here than it was earlier in the video. And this is obviously where locals come to cool off on a hot summer's day. Now we're going to keep following the river, and the next stop on my agenda is the town of Douro, which is also a wine area here in Spain in the province of Zamora. Now I'll just interrupt the video here to give a shout out and thanks to the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creatives where millions come together to take the next step in their creative journey. Skillshare offers thousands of inspiring classes on a wide range of topics that include productivity, health and wellness, personal development, painting, gardening and lots more. Now, if you're planning a trip to Spain along the Douro and travel photography is one of your hobbies, this Skillshare course by Lucas Ridley on gear and techniques will take your photography to the next level. And it's also a good idea to know a bit of the local lingo before you travel to a foreign country like Spain, and on Skillshare you'll find hundreds of classes to help you brush up on your language skills. For me, the main advantage of Skillshare is that it has classes to suit any level. You can be a beginner, a pro, a dabbler or a master, it does not matter. You will find a class on Skillshare to suit you. Another pro is that most Skillshare classes are under 60 minutes with short lessons to fit any schedule, and the first 1,000 people to use the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So click the link below and take advantage of the offer and check out Skillshare for yourself. Now back to the video. My next step on this trip along the Douro is the relatively unknown town of Douro. Douro has around 9,000 inhabitants and is one of the most important wine-producing areas with its own denomination of origin. Although the wines are not as famous as, say, Rioja or Ribera de Duero, they are very good and reasonably priced. Like most small cities in Spain, everything is close by and easy to get to, and although I don't like driving in the older parts of the towns for obvious reasons, sometimes you've got no choice as there is no other way to get to your accommodation. But once there, you just leave the car parked and head off to explore the town on foot. To be honest, this was one of the highlights of my trip, and I wasn't expecting such a pleasant little town. Great food, great wine and friendly people. What more can you ask for? There is the river, of course, and this fantastic Vega. Now this town is a stone's throw from the provincial capital of this area, Zamora, and that is where we're headed today. We're going to follow the river down to Zamora, but I will say that I have been impressed by what I have seen in this town, and I definitely recommend spending a couple of days in Douro. Day 3 of our journey along the Douro, and we're heading to the provincial capital of Zamora. Located in the autonomous community of Castilla y León, Zamora is a city where you can see the river in all its splendour. In fact, Zamora is the biggest city on the Douro in Spain. There are two ways to get from Douro to Zamora. You can take the motorway and get there quickly, or you can take the old national roads and take in more of the surroundings. As you can see, this road follows the river, and there is a lot of agricultural activity on both sides. I love travelling on this type of road in Spain because you see places that you wouldn't know existed if you took the motorway, and there are always plenty of places to stop and have a bite to eat in one of the many pueblos you pass through. Now here we are on the outskirts of Zamora, and we're going to try and find a hotel. It's always a challenge to find accommodation when travelling in Spain, in my opinion, especially if you stay in the Casco Antiguos or older parts of the city. In fact, our accommodation in Zamora was bang smack in the old part of town. But luckily people are friendly and they're always willing to lend you a hand if you need to find your hotel or tourist apartment. Estamos buscando a Cipresti.
¿A calle Cipreste?
Sí, pero aquí se puede circular, ¿verdad?
Sí.
Okay, so I'm now in the city of Zamora, following my route along the Douro River, and as we can see here in this city, it is absolutely magnificent and a fundamental part of this city. And Zamora is a relatively unknown city here in Spain for foreign tourism. You could say it's off the beaten track. It's small, manageable, and also well worth a visit if you're in the area. And after a quick stay in Zamora, we hit the road again, and this time to head back to Madrid. But I have one stop planned, and it's in one of the most famous towns in Spain for white wine, Rueda. And it's from this town that my journey along the Douro comes to an end. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't, and I'll see you in the next one. And if you ever come to Spain, try to visit this part of the world. I highly recommend it.